I am Marsha Lewis. Let's talk. Today's commentary, Thursday, February the 25th, 2021. I want to do a little commentary in regards to the press secretary, President Biden Press Secretary Jen Psaki, I believe is her last name is pronounced. She was on The View. She was a guest on The View, kind of giving us information within the past, as they say, about 36 days since the President of Biden and Harris administration, and they had the press secretary on. And all the ladies, of course, asked her question, but the commentary we're going to talk about is that of course, that always trying to be more than what she is, trying to be so rude and so I got you, and always end up making herself look like the ass that she is instead of what her mission is to make the person that she's basically having a conversation with, whether that's her colleagues, her co-hosts, or guests. And in this case, the conversation was with the press secretary, and we're going to listen to the clip. I also have a Bible. I'm going to read Proverbs 4 and 7, and because I think this is perfect example of a scripture to read about this conversation. The Bible instructs us, and this is Proverbs 4 and 7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. So with that being said, reading Proverbs 4 and 7, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. And this is something Meghan McCain needs to learn. Let's listen to the clip.
And this week, a migrant facility that operated under the Trump administration for only a month in September 2019 is being reactivated to hold up to 700 children ages 13 to 17 throughout the campaign. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris repeatedly spoke out against kids in cages. I feel like this is the same thing, and that you're still detaining kids at the border, and it's not meaningfully different than what President Trump was doing.
Well, it's absolutely not the same thing, Megan. We are not ripping children from the arms of their parents. That is horrible and immoral, and something we saw in the last administration. But what we're seeing is kids are fleeing prosecution. They're fleeing really difficult circumstances in their home country, and they're coming to the border. And we need to figure out how to treat them humanely and keep them safe. And in a time of COVID, that means we needed to open an additional facility so that we could have educational services, so we could have legal services, so we could have medical and health services, and have those kids there treated humanely until we can find proper homes, family placements for these kids. This is incredibly difficult. It's heart-wrenching, and it's a really difficult decision, but this is the best decision we felt we could make to keep these kids safe and get them into the right places and right homes.
You know, there are mounting calls
That's
to
a
remove postmaster.
Everyone has.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
I just want to know, are you or are you not detaining children separately in a different facility?
Well, Megan, this is a facility that was reopened, it was revamped, and it was redone to have these kids in a place where they could have access to educational services, health services, so they could find proper homes. We can't send them directly to families that haven't been vetted. We've seen issues with that in the past. We can't have them all in the former HHS facility because of COVID, and we need to make sure there's safety protocols so that they're not in beds next to each other. This is
There's
incredibly
criticism all the way
difficult.
around, including from people within your own party like AOC, and I think there's just a lot of people that see this as hypocrisy and that it's just sort of potato. It's kids in cages or kids being separated from their families. Kids are being separated from their families.
Well, Megan, what's important and what we all have a responsibility to do is communicate clearly about what this is and what this is not. And this is kids going to a facility run by HHS. We had to open a new one to make sure it had the safe protocols in order to address the COVID needs and the health and safety needs, because we can't have as many kids in the former HHS facility. That's exactly what we did. But our objective is to get these kids into safe homes with their families as quickly as possible. And we are absolutely absolutely not doing what the former president did and what, frankly, the current president and the current vice president objected to, which is ripping kids from the arms of their parents. That is not the policy of this administration and not something we would do.
Jen, I was reading this morning that many of the children have been reunited with their parents already, that this is an ongoing thing. Isn't that so? That the Biden administration has already taken that step to reunite children with their parents. It's not, how is it in anybody's mind the same as what went on before? It's outrageous.
It's absolutely not the same, and that's our objective. You know, we want these kids to be safe. We want them to be treated humanely. We can't send them back on the journey they just went on. That is not the right choice. But we need to make sure that we are finding their families. That's hard, too. There's not the data and the history thanks to the last administration. So this is incredibly difficult, Joy. We want these kids to be with their families, to be reunited. We want them to be with family members. It's going to take some time. And we also want them to be safe during a time where there's a global pandemic. And that required the opening and revamping of this facility.
I like how the Press Secretary Jen handled Meghan McCain, her snotty, unprofessional presentation. She does not know how to basically ask questions or do an interview. She doesn't. And she always got that snottiness about her. She's so unprofessional and, you know, just gonna shaking her head and like she's just gonna demand. Again, if that was Sonny, who's black, and she's also Puerto Rican, if that was a black woman doing that, I bet she would have had so many write-ups, so many reprimands, and have not lost her job. Because, see, a black woman can't go on national TV and behave herself the way Meghan McCain, John McCain's daughter, do basically almost every day. See, because as a black woman, one is going to be said is unprofessional. And to act like that, that is unprofessional. And then, if it was a black woman, she's going to come out, well, she's angry. She has an attitude. She doesn't know how to act or conduct herself. Meghan just shows she's very immature. As many people have been pointing out, even how these hairstyles and how she's giving display of herself every day when she's on the show. She seems to have the mentality of a toddler or a 14, 15-year-old teenager that has not matured and basically matured into a young woman, an adult, and she just had a child. She's 36 years old, would be 37 in October. But she acts so immature. She always got that self-entitlement. She's John McCain's daughter, just rude, snotty, unprofessional, and like I said, it's nothing to do with her being a conservative. She is not the only person or the only woman that is a conservative or is in the Republican Party that cannot be a representation on The View. And many fans and people that love the show, like myself, want her gone. I plan on doing a commentary where she was about Dr. Fauci, Monday's show. Haven't gotten around to it yet, but I do plan to do commentary on that. Again, shaking her head and all that. I mean, it's just, it makes no sense. But I love how Jen, and then I love how Joy came up. And like I said, it makes no sense, like Joy said, for someone to think that that's the same thing. And it already has been reported, and I saw it as well as Joy mentioned recently today, that many of the children have been reunited with their family, and that is awesome. And I hope that all of those children get reunited. And I do know that's a difficult task, because as we learned in the Trump administration, they didn't keep record keeping. They didn't keep up with what child or what children belonged to who, or who the parents was, or who the responsible persons, guardians, and things of that respect. So they have a difficult task, as Jen, the press secretary, mentioned. But again, that's why I read Proverbs 4. Wisdom is the principal thing, and all thy getting, get understanding. See, you can't take something and simply run with it, and which, I mean, people do it all the time. They take a little piece of something they either heard or been told, or maybe just, you know, that hearsay mentality and all of that, and the whatism and whatism. You need to have the facts. You need to have all of the facts, because with just having half of something, that's not a whole. See, it takes two halves to make a whole. This is a whole. This is a half. This is a half. You put it together, that's a whole. A half is just that, a half. Whether it's this half or that half. But when you put it together, it's a whole. So that's vital, that's important. You need to have all the facts, and they need to be that. Facts, pure, valid, accurate, no nothing to say this is not fact or this is not accurate, no discrepancies or anything like that. You need to have facts, true, valid facts, just like we learned in this last presidential race. Nothing to support that big lie, the big conspiracy that the presidential election was rigged, that it was stolen from Trump, it was a false. Nothing supported that. And this too with these children, you just can't take something and because you want to, like with Meghan McCain, try and use hypocrisy, and the Republicans are the absolute worst with trying to throw hypocrisy. You let the man that incited an insurrection walk out. No one held him accountable the past 4 years. In fact, he was emboldened and enabled with the complicity and the silence of many Republicans, including Meghan McCain. So, girl, you need to go have a seat. You need to go have several seats. And as many of us know, I'm going to go ahead and put it out here and say it. No one really gives a rat's ass about the opinion of Meghan McCain, John McCain's daughter. She really is nothing other than that, known as for being the daughter of John McCain. So, going back to the topic at hand, you must have all the facts, and you need, when you're going to discuss that, you need to give that. Jen pointed out, you have to make sure that these kids are put back with their families, but you can't just send them out there, say, to a foster home or anyone like that, and you can't send them back if these are kids, as she pointed out and stated, these are kids that are showing up to, from what I gathered from what she said, on their own without any adult supervision or parental guidance and things of that perspective. They're showing up, so they're having to take them in and put them in a facility to make sure, like she said, and we are still in a pandemic. We are under CDC guidelines. We are under COVID guidelines and things of that nature in perspective. So you can't just put them all, like she said, in multiple rooms. They got to have their own bed, but of course, I'm sure there's got to be a separation or so many within a room, and they got to have personal hygienes. They got to have educational. They got to be fed. They got to be nurtured. And I love how she pointed out, be treated with as human beings. Have human being treatment, not like they're inhumane. What we got from that previous Trump administration by just simply, as she said, snatching children from their parents and then not keeping accurate record keeping and just putting them in lock cages. Putting kids in lock cages is different from having them in a facility where they're getting fed, being treated, like I said, like human beings, being nurtured, and getting, say, if they need some psychological help or if they need some type of medical or whatever the case, personal hygienes, and getting the information as much as possible about their parents so that they can adequately be reconnected to their family, or maybe if the instance comes to where they may go to foster. But even with that, because we know the foster care isn't always what it should be or safe. Children, just Americans alone, have suffered a lot of abuse in foster care. So you got to make sure you do this right and with the right people, in the right spirit, the right manner, with love, care, and genuine concern. So this I got you moment and this hypocrisy, Meghan McCain, sweetheart, dear, you could have kept that crap. Because see, you don't care. You don't care. You don't even want people to have health care. You want to care about yourself, your little rich bubble that you live in. You don't care about average Americans, poor people. You don't. You're a racist. So that was what I wanted to discuss about the conversation with Meghan McCain and the press secretary trying to use hypocrisy on the press secretary when that's what the Republican Party is itself, full of a lot of crap and a lot of hypocrisy, and they love to do the point the finger, deflect, and their little talking points. They have nothing of any real, genuine concern. They only care about themselves, and they still, and Meghan McCain is a Trump supporter. I don't care what you say, because her mouth can say she did, and you know she'll use because for personal reason, because he berated everybody, herself, her dad, and as she said, in life and in death, the entire McCain family. But yet she comes on TV, and all while these last 4 years, she supported him. She had her, and we know that of her husband's family, her father-in-law worked there. He had gotten into some trouble. She talked about how her sister-in-law, who when the insurrection took place, and what she had said those domestic terrorists did. And then her husband's constantly on Fox News, and he run the Federalist with all of his racial slurs, and then the expert in racial homophobic slurs and Twitter tweets and then deletes. She's a racist, and she can say all she wants, you know, just like on Martin Luther King Day and how she supposedly cost. But it's what you show me. See, your mouth can say anything, but it's the actions that you show me. And many people want her off of that show. She should not be a co-host. She should not have a platform, at least not on The View. Now, if she want to go to Fox News, where she would be the perfect fit. That's where she go. That's where she worked prior to when she before coming to The View, and when her dad had announced his cancer, she had quit her job at Fox News. I wonder would Fox have her back? Again, that's where she fits better. Because see, they're snotty people. They're rude. They're unprofessional. They don't act with the best of intelligence, and they go along with the lie of the Republican Party and that of Trump. That's where she would fit better. So Meghan, why don't you try and go back where you would fit better? Because see, she also had 2 prominent black women banned from The View. Sherry Shepherd, who was just on last week. But see, that's been since we've had all these people like Barbara, the woman that was let go last year for the racial slur that she used against even Sonny Hodson, Robin Roberts. And then Hillary's no longer there. And the president, James Ghostin, is leaving the end of March. See, her little safety net, that little cushion. See, many of you might not know the behind the scenes, but Meghan McCain is not a person that is nice. But we see that on the show, and she's even worse behind the scenes. Because, see, she goes to the higher up, or in previous instances, went to the higher up and got Tara self-mind banned because she didn't like what Tara had said when she called Trump the cult. She didn't like when Sherry had made answered a question that was asked of her, what had nothing to do with The View, but she used that white privilege. She used being John McCain's daughter, and she used that, especially like Barbara Frito, who had been known about racist comments in the past, and that then what led just last year to an investigation. Now she lost her job in regards to it. See, that's how white privilege is handled. You get black women, prominent black women, banned from a television show because the little baby who's self-entitled and has not earned that job she has, that seat she has, the platform she has, but because she's John McCain's daughter, things like this has happened. So people, if you haven't done research and if you don't know a lot about Meghan McCain, she's an evil, vile, mean woman that has been coddled by many top producers and people executive at The View. And you see how she acts daily. It has been just like Monday, the false, and she continues to come out here spewing false lies, knowing this lies, and her little Republican talking points that she gets from her husband and the Republican talking points at large. and she comes on national TV and gets away with this. If that was a black person, that would not be so. Just do your research about who really is Meghan McCain, John McCain's daughter. This is Commentary. I'm Marsha Lewis. Let's talk.